It is 0 hour 30 Universal Time. I'm Steve Ember in Washington. France says it will provide 2,000 troops for the international peacekeeping force in Lebanon. French President Jacques Chirac made the announcement. Mr. Chirac says France has received details from the United Nations on the rules of the operation. He said Israel and Lebanon have both stated that the peacekeeping troops will be able to carry out their duties. France currently has 200 troops in the UN Observer Force. A Security Council resolution ended the month-long war between Israel and Hezbollah. The resolution called for adding up to 15,000 troops to the UN force in Lebanon. The Bush administration says it will push for restrictions against Iran if it does not end its nuclear activities by the end of this month. A State Department spokesman said Thursday that there is still time for Iran to stop processing uranium by the August 31st time limit. The deadline was set by the United Nations Security Council. On Tuesday, Iran said it was ready for serious talks. The United States and some European countries accuse Iran of attempting to get nuclear weapons. Afghan and American-led coalition forces say 7 suspected al-Qaeda militants were killed in an early morning raid Thursday in eastern Afghanistan. However, local officials say the victims were civilians with no connection to al-Qaeda. American officials say an Afghan child was killed and a woman was injured in the fighting. They say 4 militants were captured. The top American commander in the Middle East says a security campaign in Baghdad is making great progress. General John Abizaid also said Iraq is far from civil war. General Abizaid spoke to reporters Thursday in Baghdad. He said comments he made this month that civil war was possible in Iraq had not been correctly understood. The general said he did not mean that Iraq is close to civil war. President Bush is sending a top diplomat to Sudan to urge the government to accept United Nations peacekeepers in Darfur. The Assistant Secretary of State for African Affairs, Jendai Fraser, says she will travel to Sudan on Friday. She says she will take a letter from President Bush to the Sudanese government. The letter reportedly calls for urgent action to halt violence in Darfur. Ms. Fraser says she is sure that in time Sudan will accept the UN troops. Officials in Britain have charged a 12th suspect in connection with a recent plot to bomb passenger airplanes over the Atlantic Ocean. A court in London charged Umair Hussain with failing to provide information that could have prevented a terrorist attack. 8 other suspects are being held for questioning about the failed plot. 2 other suspects were released on Wednesday without charge. You are listening to the news in VOA Special English. The Sri Lankan military says its airplanes attacked and destroyed a Tamil Tiger sea base in northeastern Sri Lanka Thursday. Also Thursday, unidentified gunmen shot and killed a Sri Lankan man in the eastern part of the country. The man worked for a New Zealand aid agency involved in efforts to help tsunami victims. In Jaffna, an armed group attacked offices of a Tamil aid agency. The attackers destroyed equipment and set fire to the building. Also, a Red Cross ship carrying supplies for civilians is expected to arrive in the Jaffna area late Thursday. The civilians had been separated from the rest of the country in fighting between the army and the rebels. A German-born Turkish citizen has been released from the American Naval Base prison at Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. Murat Kurnaz was held for more than 4 years. His lawyer says he was flown to a United States Air Force base in Germany and released on Thursday. The move follows long negotiations between American and German officials. Mr. Kurnaz was arrested in Pakistan in 2001. His lawyer says he was mistreated at the military prison at Guantanamo Bay. Officials in the United States have charged a man in New York with broadcasting programs from the Hezbollah television station Al-Manar. Government lawyers say Javed Iqbal was broadcasting the programs to people in New York. American law bans citizens from dealing with any group listed as a terrorist organization. If Mr. Iqbal is found guilty, he could be sent to prison for 5 years. The Apple Computer Company says power storage devices in almost 2 million of its smaller computers are damaged. Apple says the damaged computers must be returned to the company. The Japanese electronics company Sony made the damaged batteries. The computers affected are the kind that can be carried around, known as laptops. Apple officials say more than 1 million of the damaged computers were sold in the United States. Officials say about 700,000 damaged laptops were sold in other countries. And scientists say Pluto is no longer considered a planet. The International Astronomical Union voted on the change Thursday in Prague. The scientists say Pluto is too small to be a planet. It is now called a dwarf planet. There are now only 8 planets in our solar system. The astronomers say a planet must orbit the sun. A planet must also be large enough that the force of its gravity makes it round. And a planet's orbit must not cross that of another planet. Pluto's orbit crosses that of the planet Neptune. And now, briefly, here again is the major news of the hour in special English. France says it will provide 2,000 troops for the international peacekeeping force in Lebanon. French President Jacques Chirac says France has received details from the United Nations on the rules of the operation. The Bush administration says it will push for restrictions against Iran if it does not stop processing uranium by the end of this month. And President Bush is sending a top diplomat to Sudan to urge the government to accept United Nations peacekeepers in Darfur. That's the news in VOA Special English. Steve Ember reporting.